Superman's S is the most iconic part of his figure, and the way in which we see it tells us a lot about the character. Even an image gives us some indication of what version we're going to get from whatever author, artist, or filmmaker is at the helm. In its inception under Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the meaning of the S was quite obvious, but since then we've had many expansions and reinterpretations of the character that have been aplenty in our media, granting him a new history, position, and meaning in the space in which he exists. In 1938, the S from the original comic strip bordered on barely visible, partly due to the poor printing technology of the time. It was brief, small, and even matter of fact. But that quaintness to now feels quite poignant. As Superman began to grow in popularity, so did his crest. The symbol became more broad and defined in tandem with his rise of popularity and expansion of powers. It very much grew to reflect the position that he would then embody, eventually forming into the symbol we know today. And it's why you'd remember that symbol over this one. That then becoming the classic Superman we know today. Though that is subject to change. Like many readers, I do find myself engrossed in the books and what they give to us and all the different ideas explored in the comics. I can't dismiss the more popular mediums like TV and film and their impact on the character and how they influence the public opinion of that character, because it's how many people get that taste, you know? It's how I got into reading. But this then adds to this weird Ouroboros effect where the comics influence the film and TV, which then go back and influence the comics. It's this weird Ouroboros effect that's all dependent on the popularity of the material, mind you. There have been many books that haven't been influenced or adapted, and there's been many TV shows that have been forgotten about. Throughout the movies, it would lead you to believe that the S on Superman's chest is a family coat of arms, a symbol for the House of El. This was given way in the 1978 directed film by Richard Donner, and so it's the same in 2013's Man of Steel, directed by Zack Snyder. Though there is the additive component in that film of the S standing for hope, a hope of Krypton's future. One that I feel the film muddies through its storytelling. But this then has reinformed the comics going forward, being adopted by the new House of El, the Super Family, which are heavily featured in Action Comics and much of their adjacent titles. But in the current age of Superman with supplied context, what does it even mean? Well, I have my own interpretation, of course, but that's not what I want to discuss. I want to go over why it even matters and how we get there. The progression of the S having meaning comes down to three things. The first of which being design. This isn't just about the S, but the whole ensemble, the whole costume. What ideas are visually trying to be communicated to us as an audience? The next being intent. This is something that's a narrative component. What statements are trying to be made throughout the story? What is the writer trying to showcase to us about the character or the world or the relationships that character has? And lastly, this is something that falls on us. Reaction. As an audience, we don't have much power as individuals, but as a mass, whether we lay in acceptance of something or decline or just lay entirely polarized on something, really affects what we've seen. It affects the creator's next move, it affects the impact of the property or the material. You know, we've seen aggressive redirections based on audience feedbacks before, and it's kind of what's brought us to this place cinematically. I've recognized that most adaptations try to maintain that traditional S, and some depart from this, which feels like a statement itself, either on the character, where he is, or who he has become. In addition to that, I'll say that most all media is a reflection of the times in which it was made. So much of what we feature in our media is either comments on our current world, either the faults of it or where we want to be. And we often use characters like this to create that. I mean, Superman in 1938 was very much a reflection of the desires of Siegel and Schuster, the champion of the oppressed. But these are not the symbols I want to talk about today. Today, I want to talk about the most current and still forming version of the character, one we've yet to see the full presentation and reaction of. That being James Gunn's Superman, which at the time of recording, the most we have to go off is only the trailer, which is quite a bit to go off of. We can grasp much of what the film is going to entail through that trailer, with the little bits that it's giving us anyway. But as I said, this is definitely going to be a redirection, a departure from the previous and popular adaptations in recent memory. And that S is the first indication of that. After watching the trailer for James Gunn's Superman, it's clear this is a full-on reboot of the DC cinematic universe, with new characters, aesthetics, and energy, in addition with a whole new cast. On top of that, one of the things I find interesting is the new symbol for this Superman, it being a clear homage to Alex Ross and Mark Waid's Kingdom Come graphic novel, though they swap out the black background of the original for the more traditional yellow hues of the colour scheme we all know. And I find that exciting for two reasons. And I feel that Gunn may be telegraphing the plot through the use of that symbol. So before I proceed, I want to say potential spoilers. I don't know exactly what the plot holds, but it's a guess, though an informed guess, from watching the trailer and reading quite extensively the source material that's been referenced. The world of Kingdom Come is a world lost in itself. Due to the changing of public opinions of what a hero should be willing to do, that being killing their enemies, and the laws changing to reflect that, heroes are no longer held accountable for their actions, not to the extent that they were. And so this world now suffers from blurred lines, moral ambiguity, and saturation. Heroes and villains are fighting in the streets, causing mass casualties, and the public don't know who is who anymore. They're all just labelled as metahumans. And so this world of danger and chaos is so out of order that Superman is pressed to return from retirement to re-establish the morals of being a superhero. This is just a synopsis, of course, though Kingdom Come doesn't just work on an in-universe level, it also works on a metatextual one as well. It was released in 1996, a very difficult and transformative period for comics, as the 90s were known for. Collectors' bubbles had popped, competition had risen, and the market was shrinking. And so the big publishers, like DC themselves, had created new characters that were current, darker, and edgier, that clashed with much of their established catalogue. And so, due to this uncertainty and uneasy period of comics where they were changing shape, that the lines were being blurred and altered, we'll say, came a story of the first superhero who'd fallen from favour and returned to re-establish not just the roots of the world, but the medium it inhabited. As well as this, Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman has been hinted to be a very large inspiration for this film. These are both curious choices, as these stories are about Superman at the end of his career. All-Star is about a Superman that is dying, but at the peak of his power, trying to set the world right before he goes, giving closure to himself and those around him, trying to make the world a better place than when he came into it. While Kingdom Come exists in the deconstructionist era of comics, All-Star Superman was written after the fact. Its release beginning in November 2005 and finishing in October of 2008, Morrison was a great believer in the power of the Silver Age of comics. In many interviews, they source it as the point of where they fell in love with the medium. And the Silver Age is kind of known for being this hyperbolic, silly era of comics where the realm of the fantastical was enormous. And so Morrison gives us a Superman at the height of his powers, but at the same time giving us a great personal tenderness embodied in that character that is truly the core values of Superman. And that is what is so significant about James Gunn choosing that S and reviving it with the vibrance of the traditional colour scheme we all know. In the trailer, we see a Superman in conflict with public opinion, with heroes running around under somebody else's agenda, whether that be Maxwell Lord or Lex Luthor. But this Superman will be our torchbearer out of the previous DCEU with its dark and gritty and at times clashing tones.
Who are you? I don't know! But I'm also a big fan of justice.
And it will be the reconstruction of the myth while showing the way forward. And I believe that is something to be very excited to see. Look, it all seems that way. We'll know it when it comes out, and like I said earlier, when it comes to having that S with meaning, we've yet to see the full presentation and intent of this adaptation. And as well as that, we've yet to see the reaction. So we'll all know in time. But I'm very excited, and I cannot wait. Thank you very much for watching. I'm still figuring this out, so please comment below about what I could improve or what I could do in a future video. What other topics or authors or books do you think are worth talking about on this forum? I want to be an additive voice. I'm not particularly interested in doing reviews. It's not something I would totally cancel out of any future video. I'm more kind of interested in evaluating something in full context, or as much context as I can find about it. And so please let me know if there's anything else I could be doing. And please like and subscribe. And thank you very much for watching Comic Book Case Study.